Good morning and welcome to day 3 of the PENC Virtual Raleigh Seminar. My name is Katie Cox. I'm the PENC Membership Director, and thank you all for being with us this morning. We would like to take a minute and thank all of our sponsors: NC Electric Cooperatives, Duke Energy, ECS, WSP, McAdams, SEA, ATC, Withers Ravenel, The Wooten Company, Terracon, Kleinfelder, Kimley Horn, Highfill, CRU, Schnabel, and EW2. Thank you all so much for your support. A quick reminder that we will have a networking social this afternoon at 5 p.m. after the last session. It's going to be a libation conversation, just sort of a happy hour chance to meet some new folks and talk and maybe get some feedback about how the seminar went. The meeting link was included in your registration confirmation, but if you need it again, just shoot me an email and I'll get that to you. If you have any technical difficulties today, please use the chat box and I will try to assist you. We will take questions throughout the presentation and you can use either the questions box or the chat box to ask those questions. Our first speaker today is Ray Cox. Ray is Vice President of Marketing for Highfill, a Carolinas regional engineering consulting firm. He has nearly 3 decades of experience communicating as an engineer in the water industry. He is a former chair of the NCAWWA-WEA Board of Trustees and remains active with diversity and service endeavors of that organization. He is also a former PENC president and was recently inducted as a PENC fellow. His BS from NCSU has doomed him to root for the mediocre sports teams. Finally, he is a professional musician who performs for indifferent crowds in bars and restaurants, and now online throughout the Carolinas. Welcome, Ray. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Katie. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for sharing your time and attention this morning. We're going to take a little break, I think, from your truly technical sessions and use our right brains for a little bit. I'm going to run through a broad range of topics whose common thread is communication in one form or another. This is a presentation Katie and I had, we had this scheduled for annual conference. I just feel like it's, communication is better talked about face to face, but it's 2020 still. So here we are in our virtual world. If you want to throw a question up in the chat box, I do have that up and I'll try to keep an eye up there and see if anything's coming up. I don't mind, having some interaction while we're going through this. Feel free to do that. So I'd submit to you, though, that I'm submitting that engineering's greatest challenge is communication, but I'd take it a little further than that. It's not really just an engineering challenge. Increasingly in the media and in the streets, we're seeing people who are feeling clearly like we're not heard, we're not respected, we're not valued. All of that to me is really a failing of communication. And so I'd really submit that this is really one of our biggest challenges, a lot of ineffective communication going on these days. But this is not a political presentation or anything like that. We're gonna have some fun going kind of lighthearted through a lot of different things today. We're gonna talk about how great we are and things we're really good at. We'll talk about some things that are challenging for us and for anyone really. Give you some tips and resources that hopefully will help you be better communicators going forward. And then there's a big secret at the end. You want to stay awake. You want to stay tuned for that. Once I've revealed this big secret, you'll be reassured that you've invested your time wisely, that you'll live out the rest of your days highly enlightened and will most probably go to heaven. All right, let's pat ourselves on the back for a minute. Engineers solve complex problems. We are problem solvers. That's what our engineering education has taught us to do. And then we've been practicing that however long our careers are. And now I'm still not sure why I needed differential equations, but that's a whole other discussion. That could be a libation conversation, although it might not be very interesting. Libation conversations, by the way, are my favorite conversations. That's the way to do it. Okay, so engineering is a noble, learned profession. We're focused on serving the public and taking care of public welfare, even placing it above our own personal gain. We are the creators, the innovators. We drive all the major innovations in every aspect of our life. And I think that Theodore von Karman said it very well. He said, scientists study the world as it is, which is, of course, very critical for us to understand these laws of nature and the discoveries that science makes, then engineers, who are a subset really of scientists, take this knowledge and these natural principles and innovate and create a world that never has been. So I love that explanation of engineering. So exciting times for us all right now. We've had this privatization of space exploration going on. Elon Musk is a pretty interesting guy. We have this proliferation of unmanned aerial vehicles or drones used in all sorts of ways these days. Green and renewable energy sources that we're developing and improving upon. Technology continues to use smaller and smaller components that are more and more powerful. And autonomous vehicles are both terrestrial and in the air. And you know, who knows? We could be traveling like the Jetsons before my life is over. Some of you don't know who the Jetsons is, but that's you can use the Google to figure that out. And then the sexiest of all of the industry that of course I'm in is the water industry. All right, so are engineers superheroes? Well, this planet that we're spinning on has a population that's rapidly approaching 8 billion people. Many scientists believe that the planet can only sustain 9 to 10 billion people. Many other scientists believe that we've already surpassed our sustainable population and we're on our way to doom if we don't change our ways. And yet we're still here. And why is that? Because we have advances in healthcare, we have advances in food production, we have advances in green and renewable energy. I'd submit to you that it's because engineers are quite literally saving the planet. At the very least, we're saving the human race. Some might argue that we're saving the human race at the expense of the planet, but again, that's another discussion, not for today. My point here is that engineers hold the key to our sustainable future. We're responsible for all the innovations that will allow us to provide a brighter future and to mediate some of the shortcomings that we've had in the past. So yeah, I think we are superheroes. Okay, despite being superheroes, every superhero has has its weak spot, and we're not infallible ourselves. Let's get this out of the way. No good engineering presentation, any good engineering presentation has a good Dilbert strip. I'll give you just a second to read that one about communication. It probably strikes true with a number of us. You see the copyright there. I did use this by permission, so I have quite literally paid a price to be with you today, and happy to do it. Happy to be here. So communication breakdown. I can't say that phrase without thinking about Led Zeppelin and hearing that song in my head, so I had to just put that down to share how my brain works with you. But engineers are notoriously stereotyped for not communicating effectively. And of course, the truth is that we all miss the boat on communication from time to time. As with any other skill, improvement requires preparation and practice. So let's talk about some areas where we tend to fall short. I had to share this with you. We're not going to try to go to this link because that fails 9 times out of 10. But I did want to provide this link. This is just a YouTube. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Patriot series on Amazon Prime. It's a dramedy. I highly recommend it. But my point here is these guys are piping engineers, and this is Kurtwood Smith as Leslie Claret, and he's in about a 1.5-minute diatribe using all these ridiculous engineering terms that everyone's expected to understand what he's talking about, and it's just gobbledygook. You can't really understand anything that he's saying. And the point is that sometimes we can just confuse the heck out of folks, and we just fly right along as if they know what we're talking about. So definitely, if you don't check out the series, at least check out the link and watch this 1.5 minutes of YouTube, guaranteed to make you laugh. So yeah, not everyone's an engineer. We need to be aware of the audience with whom we're communicating and adjust our delivery accordingly, even if the audience is one other person. We, of course, as engineers have this science, mathematics-based background. We use a lot of technical terms. We use a lot of acronyms. We follow typically some logical reasoning and pragmatism. and the folks that with whom we're communicating are not always on the same boat with us. So we have to know our audience. We also, by the way, this is not meant to be preachy, but just to be aware that most of us are pretty highly educated or and experienced in some pretty impressive technologies, and so we don't need to come across as patronizing, even unintentionally. So be aware of that. Sometimes that can happen. I'm listening to an audiobook now called If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face? It's written by Alan Alda and narrated by him, so it's pretty entertaining. But Alan says that it's incumbent first on the speaker or presenter to meet the audience where they are and to effectively communicate with them. And I agree with him. Of course, the other participants have a responsibility to engage in good faith and pay attention, that sort of thing. But the primary responsibility to connect and convey information is on the speaker's shoulders. So how do we know our audience? Let's talk a little bit about our audience. We mentioned nearly 8 billion people in the world, and with technology these days bringing us closer together than ever, we're running into more and more folks in a given day. Many of us are. I happen to be, I'll share anecdotally, I happen to be on a participating with the design team that's meeting weekly virtually, and we have folks on that design team meeting from North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, California, and Mumbai, India. So it's just phenomenal, the things that we're able to get done. And we just pick a time that is relatively convenient to everyone and have our weekly design meetings. It's pretty cool. So yeah, social barriers are down. At least before COVID, it was relatively easy to travel. Hopefully sometime in the next calendar year, it will be easy to travel again. And even if we can't travel and get face-to-face, internet, social media have us connected to folks 24/7 if we want to be. So yeah, the point is we have this daily opportunity to interact with folks who differ from us in some way. And that can create tension and discomfort when we're in an uncomfortable setting, and we need to lean into that. So I wanted to explore a little bit with you this idea of neodiversity. Neodiversity is a term that's coined by Dr. Rupert Nacoste. Dr. Nacoste is a social psychologist. He's an author and a professor at NC State. And he says we need to acknowledge the discomfort that we feel with others who self-identify in a way that differs from us. And these bullets are just some of the examples of ways that that we may self-identify in different areas. And we need to, in a place of respect, honor those differences, respect those differences, and lean into that discomfort. Admit that the discomfort is there, but don't let any prejudice that may be there lead into some form of bigotry. And so we do that by approaching it with respect and open-mindedness, and in a position to learn from the other instead of necessarily to teach or what have you. All right, so some tips for doing this successfully from Dr. Nacoste. The first one is basically saying all people are individuals. So let's not succumb to stereotypes and start grouping people together based on some stereotype in our mind. The second one, take it slow. Mutual disclosure in a relationship will happen as the relationship progresses naturally. So basically not asking intrusive questions. What's your nationality? Where you're from maybe is okay, but let the relationship progress naturally. The third one, so Dr. Nacoste is a 6'3" African American gentleman. He shares that he gets the question a lot. So you shoot a lot of hoops, and he doesn't play sports at all. So he says, don't make assumptions like that. It's better to ask open-ended questions like, what keeps you busy on a typical day, something like that. Don't tolerate intolerance. This is where we begin to get past our prejudices, and the only way we're going to do it, and it all starts with us individually by speaking up. And this, we're not saying be confrontational and belligerent, but just to let someone know in your group, if someone's speaking in a way that's offensive, to just speak up and say, hey, I don't want to listen to that. That's offensive to me and it hurts me. So I'm not going to listen to that. And if they respect that and leave that behind, apologize, whatever, great. If they continue and do not respect your feelings there, then in Dr. Knockoff's words, walk the hell away. It can elevate from there, so don't attack. Even if you're being attacked, you be the person that you think you are, which is a kind and considerate person. Listen to the other's point of view if they're being rational and reasonable. But if it gets beyond any sort of threshold of them taking responsibility for themselves, then again, walk the hell away. So hopefully those tips are helpful. Those are from this is Dr. Knockoff's latest book, To Live Woke. Those tips can be found in there along with a lot of others. It's a pretty easy read, basically a collection of stories and essays. So not a, it's designed that you can pick it up for 15, 20, 30 minutes and come back to it later. So good resource for you there. Okay, now armed with this new enlightenment of how different our audience can be from us, let's talk about some of the things we do wrong. And I'll start with our verbal communication. And you can see right off the bat when you look at these are not unique engineering traits. These are things that everyone gets wrong from time to time. These are busy times. We're all in a hurry. We're all distracted. Our phones, our watches, tablets, laptops, constantly buzzing, flashing. We've got new email, text, IM, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. We have the option of being continually distracted if we succumb to that. The third bullet is one of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people, and that's to seek first to understand. If we're listening to formulate our response versus listening to understand, we're really not listening at all. If we're just listening to be able to know what we're going to say next, we're not really hearing the other person. We've already shut them out, and we're just thinking about what we're going to say. Thinking we share the same frame of reference, again, we tend to be logical, methodical, technical, and just assume that the other person is coming from that same foundation. That may not be the case. One bit of imagery that helps me with this, Don Miguel Ruiz uses the imagery of that we're all watching our own movie. So he talks about you sitting in a theater watching the story of your life, and you see all of the you see yourself as the main character and all the supporting players interacting with you, and you recognize that, and you're like, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm on the big screen. And then you say, well, I wonder what's playing next door. And you go next door, and it's also the story of your life, but there's one person in there watching the screen, and you realize it's your mother. And you look at the players, and you're like, wait a minute. They look vaguely familiar, but these are not the same players in my movie, and they're not acting the same way. Then you go to the next theater, it's your significant other, same situation. And so his point is, we all have a different frame of reference. We're all looking at life through our own lens, and that can help us not to take things personally, to understand that the way someone is acting is really a reflection of themselves, not a reflection of us. Wanting to win an argument, it's not all about winning. We'll talk a little bit about Simon Sinek's infinite game in just a few minutes. But the goal of a conversation, the goal of communication is not always to win. I think married folks on here that are successfully married may agree with me that sometimes it's more important to be happy than it is to be right. I learned that lesson a long time ago. I'm seldom right, as a matter of fact. Lack of empathy could be a true lack of empathy, an inability to relate to someone else's life state or background or culture. It may simply be a difference in styles of communication. So they're guides to help you kind of recognize communication styles, and I'll talk about one of those on the next slide. If you get to the point where you're talking past one another, probably best to just end the conversation and pick it up at another time when calmer heads are prevailing. So these are some of the resources I mentioned to you. The first one there, I said this, you heard that. Kathleen Edelman, there's a workbook and an app. This is suitable, and this is identifying communication styles. That she divides them into the 4 groups here based on the colors that you see, and and it's really, it's very similar to some of the personality assessments that you might have taken, but it's really focused on communication and helping to recognize the strengths and weaknesses, recognize, what group the person may be in that you're communicating with, understanding the strengths and weaknesses and tendencies of each style, and guiding on how to communicate across those styles. The next group of books here, the 4 Agreements and the 5th Agreement, I think are just good life guides from Don Miguel Ruiz. The four agreements are: number 1, be impeccable with your word. Number 2, don't take anything personally. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Number 4, always do your best. Then he came back with his son several years later. So he wrote that book probably 15 years ago. He came back with his son a few years later and wrote the 5th Agreement, which is be skeptical, but learn to listen. A lot of good life lessons in there. And those, most of you probably connected with me through LinkedIn or something. I have some articles that I did over the past couple of years to try to tie those 5 agreements into business practices if you're interested in spending some time in that. The 5 love languages, this is more on a personal level. This is from Gary Chapman, teaching how to recognize the love language. He identifies 5 different types that your significant other or the people important to you in your life may speak, and being able to communicate better with them. So this thing's available like 5 love languages for teenagers, 5 love languages for married couples, 5 love languages for men, 5 love languages for politicians. I made that last one up, but you get the point. So here I am, I'm helping you with your love life while you get a PDH. You're welcome. No additional charge for that. Okay, on the written side, our interpersonal writing these days, sometimes we're writing letters, but it's rare. Most of the time these days, it's electronic communication, text, emails, instant messages. So we're using abbreviations and choppy sentences, maybe a bunch of emoticons or emojis or whatever. Just be aware that sarcasm does not always convey comically. In fact, it rarely does unless you are really connected with this person. Context and nuance may be unclear or missing altogether. And there's obviously no body language to read when we're communicating in this manner. So my advice on this is to kind of stick to the facts. I mean, it's one thing if you're bantering back and forth with your friend. Okay, that's fine. But in a business type correspondence using these media, stick to the facts. If a more nuanced conversation is required, find another medium to use. Continue with written into technical writing. Okay, engineers, listen up. Every detail is not of equal importance. Bless your hearts. Every detail does not need to make its way into the paper, into the SOQ, into whatever you're working on. That's how they can become overly technical and boring. Those terms are probably redundant. Misspellings are another pet peeve of mine. If I can't trust you to take the time to get your spelling correct, how can I trust you with a multi-million-dollar project? I talk with our young engineers when I get a set of plans for quality control review, and there's a misspelling in one note that's been pasted on 20 different pages. Really? I mean, even AutoCAD has spell check now. So it just erodes the confidence that I have in the design. And so I tell them, if I'm an owner or a contractor picking these up, how can I have confidence in what's been designed if the notes are not even spelled correctly? So it's important. At least it is to me. Okay, we're going to spend a little time talking about these last 2 bullets. So I'm going to jump into that. You didn't know you were getting a grammar lesson today, and that's because you wouldn't have signed up for the course if I had told you I was going to give you a grammar lesson. This is all kind of tongue-in-cheek and good-natured, but believe me, many of you need these lessons. So we're going to go through them. It's a review of stuff that you learned in high school or maybe didn't learn in high school but should have. So let's start with me, I, or myself. And myself is a reflexive pronoun only used as the object of a preposition or verb. So it's never a subject. And so these are true statements that are also grammatically correct. I love myself. I saved the whiskey for myself. Singing by myself, I let it fly. Those are examples of the way to do it. It's never Jeff, Sheila, and myself are going, never anything like that. It's never you can give that to Sue or myself, or just reach out to Bill or myself. The only time you're using myself is if you are doing the action. If anyone else is doing the action, it is me. It's not myself. All right, let's go to me or I. Me is an object pronoun. She gave it to me. She gave Sally and me a laugh. I is a subject pronoun. I gave it back to her. He and I will be there in time. So it's not she gave Sally and I a laugh. There's a temptation these days to just put I anytime you use someone else's name. It's incorrect. And it's not that was Jamie and I, and certainly not ever. That was Jamie and I's first trip together. Horrible, horrible. You're destroying the Queen's English. All right, so here's a pro tip. Here's a way, I promise you, if you'll follow this tip, you'll get this right every single time and never get it wrong. Simply take out all the pronouns, the other nouns or pronouns besides the one that's the pronoun for you. And so in other words, take out Sally. She gave me a laugh. That's correct. You wouldn't say she gave I a laugh. So you wouldn't say she gave Sally and I a laugh, all right? It works like that all the time. He and I will be there in time. Sure, it's not he and me. You wouldn't say me will be there in time. You'd say I will be there in time. So it's he and I. So keep that in mind. Take the other ones out. Use it with just the pronoun me or I, and then and that's the way it should be. All right. Moving along. More grammar. This is another pet peeve of mine, and I see it all the time. I hear it every day. As is not because. You hear this on voicemail all the time. Listen carefully. As our menu has changed. No, because our menu has changed, not as. All right, I'm preaching now, and I don't mean to be. So let's move on to sentence structure here. Engineers love to put some words in a sentence, man. That we can shorten these down. We don't have to use all these words. We don't. And oh, here's a favorite one of mine. It is recommended that. Oh my goodness, we just struggle so hard to put something like the engineer recommends, or I guess it's been beaten into our head at some point that we've got to speak in. That's not even third person. I don't know what that is. Gobbledygook. Periods are our friends. These run-on sentences that we put into our papers and are just man, they're tough to get through. If you find yourself placing that fifth column, comma, or semicolon, go back, simplify. Simple's good. Put some periods in there. And if you have the ability, you have someone who's not an engineer in your office who can look over your stuff, by all means, that will help. Basically, if it sounds awkward, try to simplify it, even if that means multiple sentences. So again, lots of resources here. Any word processor you're working in is going to have spell check, grammar check. You can look things up there. And seriously, we have no excuse. And here's the point, I mean, that's all kind of tongue in cheek, but why do I take time to kind of share those things with you? Because no matter how technically accurate we are, if we bore, confuse, or offend our audience, our message is not going to convey as intended. All right, so that's why these things are important. So let's talk a little bit about some specific engineering communication challenges. Attracting students early on to STEM, we need more engineers entering the profession. When they get in the profession, we need to attract and retain good engineers at our workplaces. We're charged with protecting the public, so we definitely need for them to trust us. Elected officials, bless their hearts, they need our help to form responsible policy. And then leading innovation into the future, we talked about this a little before, but the future is really in our hands. So attracting students, light the fire instead of filling the pail. I wish I had thought that up. That was from the National Academy of Engineering Change the Conversation campaign from several years ago. These sub-bullets in the second bullet are all examples of excellent programs that are doing that. It's okay. So what we do can be fascinating. It's all right for us to be excited about that and to share that. And that's the way that when these students get to college, that's when the professors are going to start trying to pack that knowledge inside their brains. For now, let's let them experience the excitement that comes along with engineering. We definitely want to engage and welcome underrepresented population groups because increased diversity results in increased richness of ideas. So young professionals these days, it's rare for a young professional to come in and work his or her entire career at a single company. They need a purpose, not a job. They're not, and that's not saying that some of us older professionals don't need that too, but probably more than ever, there's no, they're not coming out working because that's what you do. They're coming out working to make a difference. I thought this quote, I pulled this from Engineering Inc. magazine. Becca Schmidt, a young professional engineer with Black & Beach, thought she captured very well what so many young professionals are looking for right now. So exceptions do exist where people do come in and work their careers or work a significant part of their careers, and that's because of the company culture. So Simon Sinek is another author that I think highly of. We have to provide a culture, where our employees can perform their best work. So if he talks about a circle of safety, if we feel threatened from our workplace, backbiting and sniping and micromanagement and all of those things that make us worried about what's going on behind the scenes at work, we're not free to give our best to our clients. So our leaders and colleagues need to have our backs. We need to be free to do our best work and engage our creativity and serve our clients. We do that by maintaining a circle of safety, acting in a team environment, things like that. I'll get to some more resources about that in just a sec. So Simon he says the workplace is not like a family, it is a family. You think about all the waking hours you spend with your colleagues versus your family, you realize, it is. It is pretty much a family. Your work family is a family. So at a minimum, these are things that we should experience in the culture of our workplace. And when our culture communicates that we truly value our employees, then recruiting and retaining great talent are easier tasks. So these are some of the resources I mentioned going through there. There are a million books, as you probably all know, on business. Start with Why, Simon Sinek, Infinite Game, Simon Sinek, Good to Great, Jim Collins. The common thread through those is building sound foundations. Start with Why calls it your why, why your company exists. Good to Great calls it your core values, and Infinite Game calls it your just cause. So these are what gives the work purpose and inspires good talent to want to participate. And just quickly about the Infinite Game, the reality is that you're only competing against yourself in an infinite game. The object is to stay in the game perpetually, not to win necessarily. You may have worthy rivals that help to reveal your weaknesses, and you can work on those, but really you're trying to be a better you than you were yesterday, last week, last year. So the bottom line is the culture that you cultivate is what will keep your top employees on board or drive them somewhere else. Okay, retaining public trust. There is a proclivity these days to mistrust the intentions and findings of others. It might be at an all-time high with all the political bickering, social media trolling and bullying and biased news. These institutions that previously enjoyed a wide deference are now suspected and even vilified. So negativity bias is real. You can do your own research on this. I'm convinced that this is true. We pay more attention to negative news and opinions and feedback than positive. So what we can do is highlight we don't want to be we can highlight the positive while being pragmatic about the downside. Maintaining impeccable ethics may sound like an old-fashioned idea, and I guess it is, but that's okay. Because we work to protect the public, we have a moral obligation, I think, to earn and retain their trust. And we shirk that responsibility to our own peril and perhaps to the public's peril. So we have an obligation to do that. Engineering licensure is under really perpetual attack, be it intentional or inadvertent. A lot of A lot of lobbying groups are trying to lessen state requirements for licensure to free up some other trades like hairstyling, things like that. But they affect the engineering profession as well inadvertently. So it's something to keep in mind. I know NSPE, PENC, EPAC do a lot of work to help protect against that. So rising above the noise, yeah, anyone with a Twitter account is a supposed expert these days. So I just urge you to resist the temptation to engage in public arguments, particularly via social media. Just so much ignorance and misinformation, trolls. You might be arguing with someone who has just a dummy account that's set up just to argue with people. They don't even believe what they're saying. It's just a waste of time in my opinion. So when we're out in the public, posting in public media, social media, stick to the facts, control what you can control, let the rest of it go. Basically, you're a respected authority. Act like it. I don't mean to be preachy. I'm not saying you can't have an opinion. I'm just saying if you want to be trusted, you can't act like a buffoon in public. If that brings someone to mind, it's unintentional. Here we go again, elected officials. So these bullets are really from my perspective, my personal experience. So yours may differ, but I find these traits to be pretty pervasive among the elected officials with whom I have experience. But really, the key here is for us to help them formulate public policy based on sound science at all levels. That's local, state, national levels. That's how we can help them help the public. Leading innovation. We're close to wrapping up, folks. So hang in there. We're almost to the big secret. Don't fall asleep just yet. Speaking the language of inspiration, what we do is fascinating. It can be, and it's okay for us to be excited about talking about that. Nurturing young engineers. I'll tell you this: if young engineers are not being taught how their work has purpose and how they fit in the future of your organization, you're really training them to go somewhere else, and that's what they're going to do. Embracing new technologies. We don't need to be curmudgeons. There's so many exciting technological advances going on. We don't need to be poo-pooing those advances. Survey and imagery, GIS, CAD, building systems, models, so many things going on in the engineering world that different apps now that can do what, does anyone carry an HP calculator around anymore? I guess I do, but I use it for basic functions that my phone will do. Diversity, of course, is neodiversity, if you will, from Dr. Nacost. Our differences add richness to our creative solutions, and of course supporting research, because research and innovation are how we develop and improve our new technologies. So all right, here we are, the big reveal, the big secret, bringing this all together. The big secret is no secret at all. We all struggle with communication from time to time. If we are deliberate and open-minded, if we're genuine about understanding the other party or the audience with whom we're interacting, if we prepare deliberately, if we do our homework, check the Google, find out if you have it right or not, and then practice. Once we've prepared what we're going to say, we practice that. So hopefully these have provided some thoughtful examples for you to utilize going forward, some tools that maybe you can use in your communication. And the big thing is the folks who make it look easy have done their homework and prepared. With that, I'll go to one of the, it's probably my favorite way to communicate other than libation conversation, is standing at a microphone with a guitar in hand. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat box. Do we have any?
We do. I think they came to me only, so I will read them out loud to you, Ray. In your professional activity, do you find yourself communicating verbally or in writing more often today than 5 years ago?
It's an interesting question. For me personally, over the past 5 years, I have transitioned more into a marketing role, and so, and that is really a relationship development. So I think for me personally, I'm communicating more verbally than I have in the past, be it a presentation like this or striking up a conversation with someone. We're of course doing marketing documents, but yeah, I'm not doing a lot of technical writing these days, other than some quality control on others. So yeah, I'd say for me personally, it's verbal. I'm trying to think. I was kind of stammering through that because I was trying to think if it would be different for others. I'll tell you, things have gotten more. Seems like we're doing more tech memos and short engineering documents, not as many, 300-page monsters. Things are kind of moving at a quicker pace, quicker clip, and more electronic media instead of paper copies. Hopefully that comes close to answering the question.
Okay. What should the leaders of a company do to communicate the importance of good communication skills, and how do they nurture those skills?
Well, I'll tell you, our company that I said this, you heard that workbook and application. We offered that to our company voluntarily. And now that one in particular has it's based on some Christian ideals. It has some Bible verses and things in there. So if that's offensive to you, or you can't have that in your company, then I'm sure there are other resources like that. But that was one of the tools that we used we recognized that we were having some, and we're a relatively small company, but we still recognized we were having some communication gaps. And one of our folks one of our leaders went through that training and thought this would be great for the company, and we did that. So I wouldn't hesitate to open that up. If you're a larger company, you might want to do it in small groups or something like that. But yeah, hopefully that helps. The only way to improve on it, really, I think, is to dig in and understand a little better what the gaps may be, what may be causing them. Is it just difference in communication styles, personality types? Do we have, an obstruction in our information flow, or what's creating that communication issue?
Do you recommend using more concise language or grammar on notes on plans?
I do. I think that anything that we can do to convey a message more clearly and more concisely, we should do that. So yes, I think I'm hoping I'm understanding that question right. But yes, yeah, clear and concise notes. I know we like to use a lot of boilerplate stuff that's worked in the past, and that's okay. That's fine. And the lawyers have worked their way into. And we're not going to vilify them today, but they've worked their way into our language in a lot of ways, in our contracts and things like that, into some of the notes on our plans. So some of that we just can't help. But yeah, I definitely agree to be concise to the point that we haven't taken away from the meeting, the meaning of what we're saying.
Okay. You are a great presenter, and do you have recommendations on how to be a good public speaker?
Do I have Yeah. Prepare and practice. That's it. It's the only way to have confidence speaking in front of a group or perform. I mean, this is I perform music on set, and the only way you have butterflies every time. Well, if you care, and I do, so you have butterflies anytime. You get past those by preparing and knowing that you have the material down, you've studied it, you've done the preparation, you've done the practice. There's no easy way. I wish I could give you, 5 quick tips or a shortcut of how to get there. It's preparation. That's the only way to do it.
A couple of music questions. Monica Fulkerson would like you to play us some music on our next libation conversation. And then we have a question, Martin, Gibson, or Taylor?
Taylor for me, although I no problems with Martin and Gibson, but I have a Taylor.
Another comment, I agree with your comment about engineers being wordy instead of brief. I've had to teach young professionals how to write for busy managers. Put the conclusion first with the details below. Just a comment there.
Yeah, absolutely. And outlines, force folks to, it's too easy. We have so much technology now. People want to jump in and start designing in CAD, or they want to jump up and start writing a tech memo. And it's like, whoa, 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 outline, get an outline and follow, know where you're going. Begin, again, another Covey habit is to begin with the end in mind. And so you have to have an outline and know exactly where you're going, or otherwise you're going to meander all over the place. I agree with that comment.
Audience matters. I have found that being too formal with craft employees can be negative. What is your advice on adjusting style based on your audience?
Being formal with
craft employees.
Craft employees. I'm not familiar with that term. Well, maybe we can get around it. I'm sorry, I got lost right there. Would you mind repeating it, and we'll see if we can get around it.
Sure. I have found that being too formal with craft employees can be negative. What is your advice on adjusting style based on your audience? And they said craft employees is hourly workers, not technical professionals.
Oh, understood. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think for me personally, the most important thing is to be yourself and be genuine when you're communicating. I mean, there are certain things that I'm assuming, it sounds like you're probably in a management role, and there are certain things that you have to communicate, but you can still be human. And I think people will relate to that. So, changing styles has to come from a genuine place, not a manipulative, can't say the word, manipulative place. As long as you're coming from a genuine place and striving to meet that person or that audience where they are, I think people can recognize that and relate to that.
Okay, we have another comment, not question. Remember always that any written communication, email, text, IM, reports can be requested as part of any litigation or legal actions. Always be mindful of importance of communication and managing risk.
Yeah, absolutely. If you don't want to read it in the paper one day, don't put it in writing.
And the last question we have comes from Carl Bonner. He wants to know how much you bench press. I told him I had to call him out for asking
pretty much past my shoulder surgery for massive rotator cuff tear. So 0 right now is the answer. And I will be happy to play for a libation conversation if we can work that out. I'm obligated this afternoon, but for a future one, if we want to set that up, I'd be happy to do that. It'd be a lot of fun.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Right, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it. Everyone on the call today, your PDH form will be emailed to you shortly. Our next session is at noon, and it is on sea level rise and the challenge of restoring Lake Matamuskeet, I believe is how you say that. We'll see you all soon.
Thank you.